2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
A 2-1 pitch. And a drive in the air to deep right field. That ball headed toward the wall. That ball is out of here! Out of here! A game-winning grand slam home run off the bat of Robin Ventura.
Hey. And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza, and the Mets lead 3-2.
High fly ball to left. Back at the wall, and the captain's going deep to the wall.
Turner drives one to center, chasing Nimmo back to the warning track right at the fence. He made the catch! Oh, wow! The catch of the year for Brandon Nimmo! He took a home run away from Justin Turner! Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
And welcome to another edition of the Say Hello podcast. My name is Casey Lynn. I am joined by my co-host, Bill Pulsifer, as we are entering episode double digits, number 10. Bill, how you doing today?
I'm good, Casey. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. And, man, do we have a lot to catch up on. We missed last week, but like we mentioned to everyone following, we are back this week. And before we get into what we need to get into, I just want to say thank you to everyone watching us here on YouTube at Say Hello Media on YouTube, and everyone listening, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, Google, all the platforms we're on, the Say Hello podcast, however you want. And a special shout out to our producer. You do not see him, but he is here, Steve in White. I recommend you go to his website. He's got a company that could very well work out for you. It's roots-recordings.com. Roots plural -recordings.com. Stephen White, our producer behind the scenes. Thank you very much, Steve, as always. So, Bill, I don't even know where to start. I mean, we missed 1 week, and episode 10, and we mentioned this all throughout. There's never a dull day in Metsland. And we are in the offseason now. The regular season's over. We are in the middle of the playoffs. And it's still true. There's never a dull day. So I guess we'll start it off with this. Be respectful to do it. Tim Wakefield. You knew Tim.
I did.
I did not. He passed away.
Yes.
And my condolences to you, as you were a friend of his family, and everyone, of course. It's a terrible tragedy. 57, brain cancer. No one knew about it till really the day of. Rest in peace, Tim. And I just want to get your thoughts on Mr. Wakefield, who had a big impact on the Boston community.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be a teammate of Wakefield in 2001 in Boston. And he was a tremendous teammate. Very likable guy, got along with everybody in the clubhouse staff, everybody. Just a really, really down-to-earth dude, just a great guy. And it's very, very sad. Way too young, obviously.
57.
Yeah, surprise, tragic surprise, obviously. But I'm lucky to consider him a friend and a former teammate. And he was a special guy, and it's a shame. I feel for his family. I feel for all of his loved ones, and he was a big part of the baseball community. Obviously, not a lot of knuckleballers out there. He was the gold standard for quite a while for knuckleballers.
Yeah.
Until Dickie came along a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sure RA learned some, had some phone calls with Tim as well. But great guy, great teammate, and may he rest in peace.
That's well said. Yeah, I mean, Not knowing him, I affiliated him with the Red Sox and their, '04, obviously '03, when he gave up that big home run to Aaron Boone, and then Red Sox won the World Series in '04. Right. But more so just a knuckleballer. You don't see many of them. Yeah. And from everywhere, everybody that I saw a tweet or anything I heard about him, just a good guy,
Good guy.
So, like you said, rest in peace, gone too soon.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to big news in Mets land. We haven't had a chance to talk about it, but we knew it was going to happen, and it became official. David Stearns is the first ever president of baseball operations for the New York Mets.
Yeah.
Steve Cohen was all over him from the get-go when he took over ownership, but he was not available because he was under a contract with the Brewers. We'll bypass everything. He's now under Mets control, and he cleaned house already.
Yes.
I could segue to the next question, but before I do that, when we're talking about Buck Showalter and how that was handled, because it was kind of interesting. We knew that David Stearns was a possibility, and it became reality. And now the Mets have a top guy. And it all obviously is connected with Billy Eppler at that time, was still under Mets team control, and that changed, so many moving parts.
Yes.
But we'll keep it very simple. I'll go with my thoughts first with David Stearns. Steve Cohen wanted him ever since he took over ownership in 2020. He wanted that top guy with top experience, and Stearns was his guy. He grew up a Met fan, diehard guy. Met fan, grew up at Shea, just like I did. You pitched there. Sure, he snuck into a game or two while you were pitching. He mentioned that at his press conference. He's a diehard Met fan. It's crazy. He mentioned that at his press conference. The baseball part of it is that he ran the Milwaukee Brewers, a low budget team, not a high payroll team. Now he comes to the Mets, the opposite. Very analytical, very smart, a Harvard grad, and obviously he's got full reign. He really does. Whatever he says, I believe Steve will go with. That's why he trusted him, gave him a 5-year deal, gave him a lot of money, and We've seen what's happened since. I think the Mets are in good hands. We haven't seen, obviously, anything. We're in the middle of playoff baseball. Can't talk to any managers right now. But I think the Mets are in good hands. Steve Cohen knows what he's doing. He knows who he's hiring. And he's got a good track record, David Stearns. No, he hasn't won a World Series, but he's got all the resources now. So I think it's a win for the Mets. I want to get your thoughts, Bill.
Yeah, I think obviously you hit it right on the head. The owner got his guy, the guy that he wanted. A guy that's had success in a small market with limited resources, has done a very good job there. Obviously, very analytical guy, but I think that they have had a guy in the dugout who I'm sure we'll get on to talking a little bit about here in the next little bit, who to me seems like a little bit more of an older school guy. So maybe there's a nice little mix and match of the analytics as well as the eyeball test that they like to say, or using the gut that a guy like Craig Counsell, who comes from another, an older style of ball player, because he had to be gritty as hell to get the most out of his talent that he had. He wasn't blessed with super size or anything, and obviously has a great baseball mind. So I think it is a win for the Mets. They got their guy. No excuses now, because that's the guy that they had the target on. And he has done a good job in Milwaukee, and obviously we all hope that that will lead to bigger and better things in Queens.
Yeah, I just love the connection. Not that it really means anything, because Steve Cohen grew up, loving the Mets. Okay, great. It's just fun.
I would say it can't hurt. It can't hurt.
Right.
It can't. Mets fans are obviously very, very passionate fans. The fan base is one of the most passionate in all of sports.
Yes.
Let alone baseball. So obviously they're going to have a little bit of blood in the game for other than just business, but for wanting to put the organization in its rightful place and upward toward the top of the standings and trying to get into the playoffs on a regular basis and hopefully get that World Series.
Well, I'm glad that you said that. David Stearns got into the playoffs on a regular basis with Milwaukee, and he did it with a bottom tier payroll team. He did it through a farm system. He did it through a couple trades that worked out well. Yelich, Willie Adames. He knows what he's doing. A smart guy. And his press conference is really what we can go off of just trying to get to know him. We could go by and we'll talk about the moves that have surfaced so far. But he was very alert to what was, and he should have been, about what was going on in Metsville. He knew that he was going to be hired. Pete Alonso. And you and I have talked a lot about extending Pete, and a lot has transpired. David Stearns went out of his way during the press conference to say, we're not trading Pete during the offseason, which made every Met fan very happy. Absolutely. Obviously. We never wanted to trade Pete. So that doesn't mean he's going to be here, in 2025. It just means that David Stearns, for now, who's running the ship, sees the value. And I agree with David Stearns. There's no point of trading him now. And, that just lessens the stress of a lot of people. I would hope, I don't know if you agree with that, because there's a lot of way. He didn't even have to go there, but he did, so it was a tactical way of him, saying, hi, Met fans, I'm with you. I know he's a homegrown star. Don't worry, I'm not trading him.
Yeah. I wouldn't think that anything that Stearns says doesn't have some thought process behind it. Obviously, when you're a top professional, top executive, you kind of got to have that approach where I'm not just saying things just to say things. I've thought these things out prior to saying these things. And obviously, we saw that Pete got a new agent as well, which is not surprising at all. So he's going to look. I mean, he's got to look over there in Atlanta and see the amount of guys that have been signed before it was time for them to be signed. And it's got to look. He's only human, and he's put up great numbers for years now. So it's only human to kind of wonder a little bit as to what's going on. But now with the new beginning, a fresh start, hopefully the organization and the front office can get a fresh start with Pete, and they can get out on the right foot, and we can get things where they need to be with an organizational guy that we all want to see wearing the blue and orange for his entirety of his career. So I think it's a good thing. Pete's going to play the game as well, and I'm sure that Stearns is going to play the game as well. But I would hope that behind closed doors that they're going to be able to kind of turn the page, fresh, clean slate here, and let's go from day one now, as opposed to anything that's happened in the past.
That's where it gets a little tricky. So, Scott Boras, he signed the Shark, the number one agent in the business. Now, we could spend a whole podcast on just Pete alone and him signing Scott. He did exactly what Brandon Nimmo did last year. He was with his agency until his walk year, and he signed Scott Boras and played out his 2022 year, had a great year, and had a lot of teams after him. We talked about this, and he got lucky. Not that he had a great year, that the market was set up for him, that a lot of teams were looking for an outfielder.
Right.
So here we are with Pete, did the same thing, hired Scott Boras Corp, if you will, and you can't blame him. He has a right to do, sign any free agent that will help him get top dollar. But where I get a little worried, for lack of a better word, is Scott Boras' clients always go to free agency. And just like Nimmo did. So I'll leave it with this before you chime in. They let Nimmo go to free agency, just like probably Pete will. Pete will take the risk, if you will, of playing out that walk year, no injuries, knock on wood, just like Judge did. And he hit 62 home runs.
Right.
And we'll see what happens.
Well, I take Pete as
that's a risk that he's willing to take.
Yeah, I think it's a risk that Pete. I take himself as I'll bet on myself type of guy, and it wouldn't be surprising now this point that things didn't happen with a contract prior to. At this point, what is he? He doesn't have anything to lose at this point because he believes in himself. He believes that he's going to go out and put up numbers. He doesn't anticipate having a down year because he's a very positive and confident guy in himself. So at this point, I don't think anybody will be surprised if this does play out into the offseason. But like you said, they did get their guy again with Nimmo when it came down to it. And hopeful thinking, obviously. But I would think that, I would think that they're going. Pete loves being a Met. I think that's plain and simple.
It's fascinating, Bill. It really is fascinating because you have so many variables, like you said. Like he loves being a Met. It's not fake. It's real. We feel it, you know. But he also knows his worth. He knows his historic start to his 5-year career, and he hired Boris, which means a lot, and it's gonna be fascinating to see how it unfolds. You know, like it's a little worrisome for a fan. But it's also fascinating because as much as I love Brandon Nimmo, you know, the Mets gave him a couple extra years, you know, and the contract is fine in terms of AAV, but they did what they had to do. And Brandon wanted to be a Met.
Well, exactly the same thing. A Mets guy.
Right.
Brandon Nimmo is a Mets guy. You know, it's hard nowadays to have guys that come up through your organization, grow through your organization, and become superstars or star players or starting players or, you know, Gold Glove caliber players, whatever that may be, improving players. Nimmo's improved pretty much every single year. Obviously, we've talked about Pete and his batting average. We'd like to see that go up, but he did have some outside things going on this year with injuries and that. You just
Charlie Morton, thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't play into his psyche of trying to have to hit 60 home runs, of having to hit 300. You know, if he can just be himself, then I think that the numbers will take care of themselves, and he'll earn every dollar that he gets. You know, and that's just the way it goes.
Pete said in his exit interview, if you will, the last one after the year, you know, obviously it's going to be upbeat, and he said, you know, he's happy his defense improved, and you know, he's all about that, which I get because he could let his stats speak for himself offensively. With Pete and Nimmo, they're exactly what you said. Two homegrown stars that they locked up one. We were worried that Nimmo maybe would have left, and I don't know if it would have been the end of the world. But you know, Nimmo had a great year. He had a career year in terms of the games played, triples. You know, career year in a lot of stats. And we did some grading on our Say Hello Media newsletter, and we're up to 2, and we'll get through a lot of it. I want to know what you think. We spoke about this, but I did my own grading, and I actually did Nimmo and Alonso. So this is a perfect opportunity. After the year's over, I gave Nimmo an A-, and I gave Pete, a B+ or a B. I want to say B+. And the reason I gave A- to Nimmo is because he set a lot of career highs, and he did have a great year. He sacrificed a lot of his attributes to get paid top dollar, but he still put up the on-base percentage that got him top dollar. And then Pete, you bring up the average, 218, not going to cut it, not hitting to right center, but 46 home runs, 118 RBIs, OPS over. Those don't grow on trees. Take my assessment out of it. We talked about it, but now that the year's over, what are your grades for those two?
I think I set them both. It's nice, solid B's, maybe B+. Obviously, Nimmo batting average dipped a little bit towards the end, but with what they bring intangible wise, you got to give them a little bit of points credit that way. Career high numbers for Nimmo in a lot of his categories. So I'm going to go good solid B's for both. But I mean, we've talked about this numerous times with me. I still believe in the batting average, and I'd like to see that up because if you're getting a higher batting average, you're automatically getting on base more. So that raises everything.
Let me ask you a question as a pitcher, former MLB pitcher.
Yeah.
Nimmo obviously sacrificed, this was a game plan, his on-base percentage, you know, and all that for power. He set a career home run, 24 home runs, career high. Triples, career high. Extra base hits, career high. A couple other things dipped, but not dramatically. As a pitcher, could you do that? If you, let's say, your game, you're out, you're a strikeout guy, and you wanted to limit walks. So let's get rid of the strikeouts and have more focus on control. How hard is that as a major league player at the top level of the sport in the world to have that mindset and adjust and, everything like that? Is it hard, easy?
I mean, obviously, I think that you can, as a pitcher, let's say you're a four-seam guy And
Okay.
we'll use Cole as a good example because he was a guy that when he was in Pittsburgh and that threw a lot of two-seam
Garrett
fastballs.
Cole.
Garrett Cole threw a lot of two-seam fastballs, and then before he got there, and then when he was in Pittsburgh, then when he got to Houston, he got the pitching coach there who told him about riding four-seam high fastballs.
Yeah.
So can that be done? Yes, absolutely. I would say it's a little easier maybe for a hitter to say I'm going to ditch the on base percentage to try to swing out of my ass a little bit more to try to hit the ball over the fence than it is for a pitcher to try to, especially if you were such a two-seam guy or you're such a four-seam guy, for you to take a little bit of time in an off season and then say, okay, I feel comfortable to bring it into a game. I think the elite level guys can do that, but it's not easy to do because there's been plenty of times over the years where I think back where I'm like, man, you know what? I was working on this pitch for a long time, and then I just never felt like I felt 100% comfortable with it in the game, in game situations.
So would it be, so that's a great point, because I would think just by hearing you a little harder for pitchers.
I think it's a little harder I think it's a little harder.
Position players play every day. You're working bullpens, and then you start.
Yeah. You have more game experience, more game time to get it going, where if you're a starting pitcher, you have your bullpen in between, and you can say, man, I really like the way that my changeup felt. I changed my grip a little bit. And then you get in the game, and you get so worried about, you know what, if I throw a bad one here and it hits it over the fence, I don't have the time to give up that run at that point in time. If you're a relief pitcher, you can't go out there trying to fiddle around. You got to get those outs right now. Where if you're an everyday player, you're going to get 3, 4, 5 at bats night in and night out to continue to work on things.
And look at game film.
Including your spring training, where you're getting those at bats in spring training. You're seeing live batting practice. You can make a more concerted effort to try to make those adjustments.
Yeah, and the weird thing, Nimmo didn't play in spring training. Not that he was hurt. He just, knew his body, and he said, I'll save it for the regular season. And he did play a career high. And what you said, I wanted to ask you this question. I was always curious. How many times, for you personally, did you feel great in the bullpen before a start and then come out and have shit? And then the opposite, where you felt like shit in the bullpen and then have your best stuff on the mound?
Yeah, that's definitely a thing, and it's more times than you would believe, to be honest with you. And that took a little while coming through the minor leagues when you were having those days when you're in the bullpen and you were like, oh man, I don't have anything today. And I look back to Randy Neiman, who was one of my best pitching coaches coming through. He was my pitching coach in AA, and then my pitching coach in AAA, and then my bullpen coach in the major leagues. One of the calmest, most smooth guy you'd ever meet, man. Never out of, never goes crazy. And it took me a while in those situations to learn, you know what, don't worry about how you're warming up right now, because you're going to go out there and it'll come. And then those days where you were feeling really, really good, you had to fight yourself not to go out there and try to overthrow the baseball because you felt like you felt a little fresher than you usually do. Because a lot of times you'll give up a double and a home run and you're like, man, my stuff's so good today. But you're overthrowing and you throw the ball over the middle of home plate and they whack the baseball. But it is definitely a thing, and it happens more often than one would believe.
Yeah, I've heard, opposite ways. You feel like crap, pitch great,
You're going to be all right. Feel great.
It's like
you're
it's
out
like
in
the weather.
And you say, you're out in the third and you're like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, that's that. Yeah. So let's go to what we were talking about a little bit before, and I'd be remiss if we didn't finish it. So Stearns wasn't officially hired until the next day, but he made the decision before Buck out. Now we could talk about it. Buck Showalter resigned, aka fired. Let's put it the way that it really is. But there's a lot of fans that didn't like the way that the Mets handled the last game of the year and how it went down. And he had the celebration. I don't know if you saw it, the last game of the year, and they gave him the tribute on the scoreboard. He exchanged the lineup cards at home plate. All the players came out, ovation. All the fans, ovation. It's like he got his last hurrah. Not many managers get that.
No.
You're fired in the offseason. Goodbye. Next. It's a cutthroat business.
I think a lot of that has to do with just baseball in general's respect for Buck Showalter as a baseball guy, and this might be his last. the types of guys that are getting hired. They're going for younger guys, more analytical guys. So I think that they kind of paid tribute a little bit to him. I'm sure he wasn't really happy with the way things went down, and that's why he did what he did in the press conference. I don't know why you don't wait another 24 hours. If
He announced
the case, I don't
know if you saw, like you're alluding to it, but he was the one that broke the news.
Yes.
I've never seen that before.
I think that he was going to go and do that on his own terms a little bit. So yeah, that's a little unheard of, but I think that was his way of saying, I'm going to jump in front of this.
Yeah. It was weird, but I didn't have a problem with how they did it because most managers are just out, and they don't get a send-off. Yep. And he was here for only 2 years, and honestly, he didn't accomplish anything. I'm not talking about the man buck. I'm talking about the manager buck. He has a year left on his contract. He'll get paid. I know that he wants to manage again. There are some openings, obviously. I wish him nothing but the best.
Right.
And that will lead me to my next question. Who in the hell is managing this team next, Bill?
That's a real good question.
Your opinion.
It's a real good question. I can tell you who I'd like to see. I've got two people on my list I would like to see. Obviously, Craig Counsell would be one, just a familiarity. Geez, that's a hard word to say. With Stearns.
Yeah.
That's a hard word to say. They know each other. They know how each other work. Proven track record of winning. Obviously, not a World Series yet. Not easy to win a World Series in Milwaukee.
So everyone listening, Game 7 NLCS 18 was the furthest they got. Yeah. So no World Series, like you said. Go ahead.
But I like him as a more old school, hard nosed guy with the mix of the analytics that we know is taking over baseball. Look, I'm old and crotchety now. I'm not a huge fan of it. But I know I'm old. Second guy.
By the way, I'm sorry, I got to cut you off. Bill just celebrated a birthday. You just mentioned you're old and you're whatever the hell you just said. Crotchety. Happy birthday.
50. Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
I'm not 50, but how's it feel to be 50?
It feels a little different today. Yeah, it feels a little different today.
That's a big, big number.
It is a high number. Yes, it is a high number. Unfortunately.
Well, I wish you another 50 years of blessings and happiness, man. You deserve it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. My second guy, and this is a guy that we didn't talk about when we talked about this before, but he does have a tie to the organization. And he's a big time rival right now, to be honest with you. And he's the third base coach. Third base coach for the Atlanta Braves, Ron.
Oh.
That would be my second choice. Again, a guy that's still involved in the game and the new way that the game is played, but also a hard-nosed, old-school baseball guy who has the work ethic that is legendary throughout the game. I don't even know if that would be a possibility, but me personally, I'd like to see Wash get a look.
Okay. I didn't expect you to go with Washington, so I'm a little Counsell. Let's go there. Yes. Absolutely, it's too easy. He's a free agent. Stearns, the thing with Stearns, he's never hired a manager as the president, GM. It was Counsell was there. So this will be the first manager that he hires. Do I know Stearns? No. Do I know if Stearns has an ego? No. But I feel like if he hires Counsell, if the ego comes in, I'm just going to take the guy who I was with. Or the ego might come in, I'm going to hire my own guy and show you that I can do what I can do. I don't know.
No, who knows? There's a lot of to be determines out there. But I think that Craig is still a young guy, relatively speaking.
He looks like he's 15.
He does. He's always looked young. Still fresh off the presses. He has been managing. If they get him, I think it would be a great move. I
agree with you. So, I think Counsell, because he's a free agent, number one, there's a lot that goes into it. Brewers extended him an offer. He's refused. He's got family. He's Wisconsin born. He's got kids in college. He wanted to take a year off. Steve Cohen could just make him the highest paid manager ever and say, take it or leave it. We don't know. The only person that really knows, David Stearns. Right. So we didn't know this. You can't talk to Craig Counsell, even though their season's over, as they got swept by the Diamondbacks, who are surging, until the postseason's over. I thought but okay. So Ron Washington, interesting. Players love him, even opposing players. I saw him during the All-Star game this year, working with Pete at first with the ground balls, and one of their drills that he does.
Yep.
He's loved by the players. I thought you were actually going to go with like a Walt Weiss name, when I heard, but I don't know the situation around Washington. He hasn't been really talked about, so I can't really, go further on that. But that's a good name. I like that.
He's a good. I played for Ron Washington. I think he would be a tremendous man. I played for him in the minor leagues. I played for him in South Carolina in the Sally League in Columbia, and then again he was the bench coach / third base coach at AAA because you didn't have a big coaching staff in the minor leagues. But Wash is phenomenal. He's phenomenal. Yeah. He knows how to get along with the players. He knows the game. He was a utility player in his days. Yep. So I think utility players are guys that sit there and pay attention to the game. They pay attention and they learn things and they pay attention to signs being given. I'll give Tim Bogar as a name for a utility player who stuck around in the major leagues just because he was really, really good at watching the third base coach and figuring out what was going on, and really, really good at watching pitchers to see if they held their glove a little different or might be tipping pitches. And, I think Ron Washington, I might be talking out of my ass, but I think he would be a perfect fit for this group of players.
Three things. We always talk out of our ass, so there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, you talked about Tim Bogar, utility players. That just reminded me of Joe McEwen, third base coach after he played. He's always just been in the rumors after he was a third base coach for the White Sox, but, he's never managed. Super Joe's loved by Met fans, but, that's always a name that pops up there. I want to get your thoughts on this. You said you're Counsell Washington. I got Counsell, and then I got a name that is made its way back. And I think you know where I'm going. I think you know where I'm going with this.
I do.
And I think people who are watching or listening know where I'm going with this. And it's two words. Carlos Beltran.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm all for it. You? Let me give you a caveat before you go.
Okay.
I want Carlos Beltran as the manager, but I want an experienced bench coach with him. That's the caveat.
That's fair enough, because my first thing I was going to say was I think that the New York Mets need a guy that's managed before at this point in time. I don't think you need a guy that hasn't managed trying to get this team to where when Cohen first, within 3 years, World Series, I would think that he probably knows they're in a little bit of a rebuild, obviously, because of starting rotation and bullpen, but I don't think he still feels that those original words have changed much at all. So that's my thing against Carlos. Obviously, I got a problem with being the ringleader of stealing signs. I got a problem with that.
Okay, that's fair.
I honestly have a bigger problem with that than pre-2003 steroid guys.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Pre-2003, it wasn't against the rules. Stealing signs has always been a thing, but
not against the rules. Stealing signs. But what they did, obviously,
the way that you go about it. I personally think that all iPads and all that stuff need to be out of the dugout. There was a time. There was a time when there wasn't even video. That was obviously before my time. But then in my time, if you wanted to go see your at bat, you went right down the tunnel and into the video room, watched it real quick, and then came back out. I seen a few photos of dugouts this year. And it's 6 guys sitting at iPads staring down here while we're trying to score runs. So
that's been going on for years. Yeah, they're all huddled around that iPad. I personally have a problem
with the technology. I do.
So let me ask you this, and be fair. If you have a problem with Beltran, who is literally named only by Manfred in that letter that suspended everybody and all that came out, right after he was named best manager in 2020, A.J. Hinch, manager of the Astros, suspended for a year. back in baseball, been managing the Tigers. Alex Cora, bench coach for the Astros then. Suspended for a year, right back to the Red Sox. So if you have a problem with Beltran, what are your thoughts on those two? They're back. They've been back.
I think that the punishment might not have been as severe, or the understanding as to what it really meant, to win World Series and to cheat like that. I mean, like I said about the steroids, pre-2003, because after 2003, when they did the testing in the spring training, the anonymous testing, and then in 2004 it became against the rules. It wasn't against the rules. So you can hold that against guys if you want, but it wasn't against the rules.
It's just odd.
It's illegal, but there's a lot of stuff going on illegal. I mean, everybody's, driving to and from the stadium is breaking the speed limit or whatever it may be. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know, man. I just got a problem with cheating in general when it comes to the game. I was a pitcher too, so if you're stealing my signs like that and we're not allowed to throw it at your neck anymore because we're going to get suspended for 5 or 10 days, then.
How about this wrinkle, though? Well, let's go to the steroids that you bring up.
Outfielders can't manage.
Okay, that too.
Dusty Baker. Fair. That's it. Outfielders can't manage.
But pre-2003, pitchers were on steroids too.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not. If you were do whatever. I'm not talking about him. Whatever. If there came a time when if you weren't doing steroids, you were silly.
There's a reason why Roger. There's a reason why Roger Clemens is not in the Hall of Fame.
Obviously. Obviously.
So.
Yep. After 03, 04, and beyond, then I got a problem with it because it was written in the rules, and you're not allowed to do it. And if you were doing it,
but even while that rule started after 03, I have a problem with the 2009 World Series Yankees. Anyone listening or watching, go through their roster. I'll leave it at that. Go Google 2009 New York Yankees. They won the World Series. Look at that roster. Leave it at that. I would like Beltran to get another chance with that experienced bench coach. So,
but then now, real quick, and then we'll get on because I know we're going to be pressed for time.
I know.
What's the dichotomy then between the experienced bench coach with the inexperienced manager? You got to have the right bench coach that's going to be able to let that inexperienced manager say and be, and be all. Because there's a good chance that experienced, and we'll take Rob Thompson as a perfect example. There's a good chance that experienced bench coach probably wants to be the manager.
Yes.
Maybe not in that organization, but he probably wants to be a manager.
Only way it's a great question. The only way I can answer.
It's a tough spot for Carlos Beltran.
Right. And I'm not saying that he will get it. There's a lot of, he's stacked against, a rock and a hard place. I don't expect him to get it, but that's a great question. Let's just real quick go through who is available. It's really, if you want to take guys who have never managed a team, he would be on top of the list of who would, if you're not looking for the older managers, because why bring in a Joe Madden when you just fired a Buck Showalter?
Right.
Madden has been on record. I would love to manage the Mets. Well, Mets had no reason to fire Buck then. I'm not saying they're the same guy.
I don't know. I went to a few games and I saw some things that just didn't sit well for me. The no batting practice thing and the nobody going out to warm up stuff. That to me eventually lands on the manager's table. And then when you hear what Pham had to say about the position players. Now, look, this was year 2. If you leave people to their own devices, and the device is we're going to allow you to sit around and decide what you're going to do prior to this game. The longer that goes on, the more complacency sits in, the less that these people were probably doing. Maybe that had something to do with this year. I have a hard time we're not taking batting practice. The whole team's not out there taking batting practice, and we're not being held accountable to go out and get ready. I held my breath a little bit on Buck out of respect for Buck. I had a problem with that when I go to the game. Where is everybody? I had a problem with that, and I think the fans would have a problem with that.
Okay, let me give you. I agree with you, by the way. So take that into account before what I'm about to say. We all know that if they didn't take batting practice on the field, which is the norm, and it was the norm for decades, fans came early to shag balls and catch a home run in the stands. I did it, but we all know they're taking BP in the tunnel. Of course, and I know that was my question, and I knew the answer. It's not the same. So the real question is, what the fuck?
I don't know.
Why? not every team does that.
I mean, I've
So,
been told it's the analytics guys saying that they need to rest prior to the game. So you're telling me for 150 something years they didn't need to rest before the game, but now they need to rest before the game.
It's complete BS. Yeah,
As a
I
home
agree.
club, you go in and you sit down for an hour and a half after batting practice anyway. And
Yep.
there was one guy out on that field every night getting loose, and it was Lindor.
Yep.
And everybody else came out when the stupid smoke came out of the sides of the dugout, which there's no need for that in baseball. Because if you can't pay attention and be happy with the guys just running out onto the field and you need smoke, then baseball's not for you. And unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at with the sport. There's a lot of this isn't for you, but we're trying to make it for you stuff going on in the game.
Times have changed, and I agree with you. No need for all of that theatrics. Baseball is great on its own. We got the Fenway Park, I believe, turning off the lights on a home run. You know, the guys
Crazy.
rounding the bases, they're shutting the lights off.
We got the Boston Red Sox wearing red jerseys at home.
Right.
I don't know what's going on.
Right, and I know how you feel about the blue Met
Right.
jerseys at
and
home.
there we go. I'm old and crotchety again, but there's something to be said about tradition and traditional ball clubs.
Yeah,
and apparently that doesn't mean anything anymore.
But let's move on because we could do this for days.
I know.
Let's end on Billy Eppler. With the whole Mets moves, he resigned, took everybody by surprise. A couple days after Buck got fired or resigned, call it what you want. Nobody expected this. His reason was, I wanted, it's literally a quote. I'm not reading it verbatim, it's paraphrasing, but I wanted to give David Stearns a clean slate.
Right.
End quote. Quote by Casey Lynn. Bull freaking shit. Something. Okay? End quote. There is something, and I'm not going to figure it out, and people are getting paid a lot of goddamn money to figure this out. Bill, you don't resign with 2 years left on your contract when you knew David Stearns was coming in for years, and if not years, for months. You know, so before you chime in on this, the MLB investigation on him, exploiting or whatever, manipulating the phantom IL that everybody has been doing forever. Somebody was a snitch. We don't know who, and wrote to MLB. But even if they did, who cares? Everyone does it. I don't believe that Billy Eppler resigned over two things. David Stearns needs a clean slate. No, you were prepared to be the GM. Now the Mets need another GM.
I mean, even the owner even said that before this was all said and done, right? The owner said that Stearns will work above Eppler, and Eppler will still be there. So obviously something happened. Will we ever know? Probably not. Is it the Phantom DL thing? No. I'm going to be honest with you. I can look back at the season. Who would they have put on the Phantom DL that wasn't hurt? I don't really. Now, the Phantom DL is a thing. But the only place I really ever saw it in my career was at the minor league level, when they didn't want to release a guy and we needed to get somebody up here for a week or something, and we're going to keep you around. I never really seen it in the big leagues. I really, and granted, I only played 5 years total in the major leagues, but I was never asked to go on the Phantom DL.
Yeah, you played 5 years in the major leagues, but you played what, 17? 19, whatever it was, professionally. So it was always around, but it wasn't just the Mets recently. Everybody uses it, whether it was manipulation or not. And the Mets were singled out. So
I don't know. Maybe Stearns got a good look at Darren Roof and Vogelbach and decided, you know what, we got to go another direction.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, some stuff happened behind closed doors that.
We're going to find out. I can't tell you when, but it will have to happen eventually.
Nowadays, you wouldn't be surprised if you end up finding out, because things kind of find a way to the light nowadays.
2 years left. You don't give up that job. Even Stearns said, and this was a quote by whoever, that Stearns was like, "You've been here." They're friends, by the way. Stearns and Eppler are friends throughout the years. Stearns was like, "You keep your big office. I'll go to the smaller office. Not a big deal." Well, that is a big deal. But
God,
everybody
don't make me not like Stearns already, please.
This was just a shock. I don't believe anything about it. And now the Mets need a GM.
You would think it'd have to be done relatively soon. I mean, obviously after the playoffs and World Series, because they have some holes to fill. And
their name's already circling, but I mean, this is getting old. I mean, how many GMs have they gone through?
Quite a few
over the years. It's too many. Let's move on, and we're going to do this quick. All right.
Okay.
We're in the middle of playoff baseball. Okay.
Yep.
We did somewhat our picks before the playoffs started, and I remember your teams that you thought might go far, might not. Now that we're in the middle of it, and we're not going to say where we sit in the standing or in the playoffs at this second because they change literally by the inning. There's a game going on as we speak. At this moment in time, and if you don't want to give me your picks, you don't have to. But knowing what the series are right now, who do you like?
Up until late innings last night, I was loving the way that the Phillies looked. The Phillies looked very, very strong. Obviously, the fan support behind them has been tremendous at their ballpark. The Braves squeaked one out last night, but I like the way the Phillies are playing. I think the Astros are always tough come playoff time. The Diamondbacks they got nothing to lose. They're playing on just young, dumb, and the rest.
Yep.
They look good. The Rangers are looking really, really good. The Rangers are playing great baseball. They've got the Orioles by the nuts right now. So I like the way the Phillies are playing. I like the way that the Texas Rangers are playing, and I wouldn't put anything past the Diamondbacks at this moment.
Yeah, Diamondbacks house money.
Yes.
And I've said this literally for 2 years, ever since this stupid rule with the bye and the seedings, after the CBA, the new CBA, with 6 teams getting in half too many, because the Diamondbacks, who could go on to the World Series, win it all, who knows? 84 wins. Come on.
I know.
Come on. It's giving me 06 Mets, St. Louis Cardinals vibes.
Right.
When the Cardinals, beat the Mets, and I don't want to go there right now, but they had 83 wins total?
I think the thing is, and you know this, it's to keep more cities invested longer into the year.
Oh,
and unfortunately, what we're finding out is, which I've known for years, a lot of people have known for years, that
money grab.
Well, of course, but it makes sense. It makes sense. It makes business sense.
Does.
So you can't argue with that. But the fact that you're going to have 100-win teams having consecutive days off at the end of the year, and people will say, "Oh, but they get to set their rotation. Oh, they get to rest their players." Baseball players like to play every single day. Do they like a day off? Yes. But come playoff time, the anxiety and the excitement of getting ready to go out there and play, you want to get that first game. You want to get out there, you want to go, you want to play. So I think that has been a detriment to the teams that win their division. It's almost getting to you don't want to win the division. You want to be one of the wild card teams.
Everybody but the Astros, it seems.
And that's where people will tell you, well, what about the Astros? Well, you know what? The Astros have obviously proven that they're a special group. And they do it every single year. The Dodgers, maybe it's an LA thing, a little more laid back. Who knows? But
I don't know what's going on. That was the next thing we're going to touch upon, and we did about the first round bye, and we just touched upon it. But you brought up the Dodgers. Let's do this real quick before the mailbag, because we had a couple questions that came in this week.
Okay.
If you are a fan of the Dodgers, and you're used to winning the division every freaking year, you're expecting, and it happens, to win 100 games every year, but you go nowhere in the playoffs, whether you're out in the NLDS, CS, 2020 doesn't count for me. They didn't even get a goddamn parade. They didn't even celebrate the World Series at their own ballpark. They were in a neutral site in Texas.
Right.
So take that out. Right. I don't know what's worse. Being a Dodger fan where you win the division and you win 100 games every year and you're out really quick in the playoffs, or being a fan that has a chance every year and you don't know what's going to happen in the World Series in the playoffs. It's a tough. I've thought about it. Would I want to be a Dodger fan? No.
I'm saying you got to shoot for that first wild card slot. You don't want the division champ. You don't want those days off.
Listen, we're talking right now. We don't know who's making the World Series in the NL, but the Phillies made it as a 6th last year, and the Diamondbacks were the 6th this year. So. And
they're on fire, and they don't know any better. There's something to be said. Sometimes it's they're not experienced, but there's also sometimes that they don't know any better thing, and they just go out there and they're just playing baseball, and they're young and they're excited and they're just feeling the flow.
They're momentum, baby.
Yep.
Ride it. Let's go to the mailbag. We got a couple questions that we'll answer real quick. Jimmy Lags, he wants to know, Bill, 99. Played for the Brewers. You were teammates in the rotation with Jim Abbott.
Yes.
Now, Jim Abbott was born with one, I believe, hand. So as a teammate and getting to know Jim during that year, inspiration, how in the world did he have a career that he had? And just your overall thoughts on, being born with one hand and having a great Major League Baseball career.
Right. Well, obviously there was no telling him no in his lifetime. Jim Abbott was a great teammate, a great person. I've been lucky to play with a lot of good dudes, and he was one of them. The guy could swing the freaking bat. He was a great golfer. We used to play golf together.
Oh, I didn't even know
training.
that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It doesn't even cross your mind that the man only had one hand, to be honest with you. He was a specimen, great shape.
He threw a no-hitter.
Yeah. The guy was a great guy, a great ball player, and you wouldn't even think about the whole one-hand thing after seeing the way he does it. He just did it so naturally. And obviously, like I said, there was you can't tell him no that he wasn't going to do it. And he made sure it happened. Obviously, he was blessed with a great arm and blessed with a great body and obviously a great mind and a great work ethic and top-notch person, top-notch teammate.
I'm glad to hear that. Good. Yeah, it's amazing. It really is.
Absolutely.
Next question, your boy. He's back. NY. You even know it. I don't have to say.
Oh, yeah. It's my guy. He ain't going to let me down.
No, he's not. This is a good question, like always. 2005, Cardinals reunited with your boy, or, you're coming up with guy Jason Isringhausen.
Yes.
I want to know, or he wants to know, and so do I. How the question was, how was it being reunited after all those years with Izzy? And also, he wanted to know your thoughts on playing for Tony La Russa.
Okay, Izzy actually had a lot to do with that. Me getting that opportunity in 2004. I played with the Long Island Ducks and had a really, really good year. Ended up winning a championship with them, and then went on to winter ball. Had a really, really good winter ball in Puerto Rico. Went on to win a championship there, and then play in the Caribbean World Series. And I was speaking with Izzy, and Izzy said, "You know what? I'm going to talk to Walt Jocketty, and I'm going to talk to Tony La Russa, and we'll see what we can do about getting you into spring training." And lo and behold, I got into spring training, had a tremendous spring training, and made the club out of spring training. Unfortunately, Izzy had a bad spring training that year, and he wasn't going anywhere. And I had to come in and clean up a little bit of his mess in a spring training game right towards the end. And I took a line drive right off of my pinky toe and ended up breaking my pinky toe, which you don't think that's that important until you realize that you're walking a little bit funny, this, that, and the other thing, and ended up pulling a hamstring shortly after opening day. But what was it like? Anytime I get a chance to spend some time with Jason Isringhausen, I'm a happy man. Me and him go way, way, way back, way back. And I have got the opportunity to see him a few times over the last few years. We do stay in contact through the phone. It was like anytime we get with each other, it's like we never left. So he's a brother of mine. I consider him a brother. He has always said to me that the hype that I got as the number one prospect was something that drove him to try to be better than me. Lucky for him, he ended up having a better career than me. But I'll take that as a badge of honor that I had somebody pushing himself extra hard because of me. Tony La Russa. Tony was tough. Tony was very tough. But I also probably wasn't the best pupil at the time, maybe. Still going through some things myself.
We're talking about 05, right?
In 05, yes. In 05. I played for the Cardinals then. Tony was tough. Tony was tough. And they had their Cardinal way, and it was a lot more subdued maybe than I kind of was as a player. But much respect for his baseball knowledge, baseball wisdom. But difficult, could be difficult, but a brilliant baseball mind.
Yeah, fair enough. You and Izzy have a long history, and
yes,
happy for Izzy the success that he had as a closer. Out of nowhere, 300 saves is a big freaking deal.
And we'll forever be connected, good, bad, or indifferent with the Generation K. Obviously,
we got to get Izzy on here as a guest for sure. He would.
We might have to make that happen.
We really should. That
Yeah.
would be some
right.
good content. We're going to hold you to it to make that happen
All right.
eventually.
All right. Eventually, we're going to make that happen.
All right, we're going real quick to quick pitches.
Okay.
Bill's favorite segment where he has no idea. Oh, I'm sorry. God. I have one more question, and he'd be pissed if I didn't ask. Mailbag. Jeff Cohen, real quick.
Yep.
He wrote in our mailbag on Twitter, again, Shay_hello. You could ask questions to Bill. He wants to know what players do in the offseason.
You know what? I'm glad you got Jeff on there because I see him on the formerly Twitter page quite a bit. I just can't call it X. It's just too strange. But
it's Twitter for me.
What do they do? Look, everybody's a little bit different. You got your guys that are the hunters. Hunting season starts in November. So you got the guys that go do the hunting. Usually first things first is 4 weeks to 6 weeks off. You're taking, and I was never a 6 weeks guy. I was always like a 4 week guy where you just kind of decompress a little bit, hang out with family, hang out with wife, just lounge around a little bit. If you live in Florida, you're spending some time in the pool. After 4 weeks, 6 weeks, it's back to the grind. You're in the gym. I was 6 days a week. I took Sundays off. You're throwing. You got your throwing partner. You're up there. I was lucky because I lived in St. Lucie. We had the strength and conditioning coaches were there in St. Lucie. So I got to work out, being the eyes on. And I obviously had a good enough relationship that even when I wasn't with the Mets, I was lucky enough to be able to go up inside the Mets minor league clubhouse and use their training facilities because baseball is a brotherhood. So, a little bit of time off. The guys that hunt. The guys that like to go watch some concerts, you go see some concerts. You go, do your thing. You go visit family, maybe a little vacation, but it's not a long time off before you're back to the grind again and getting ready.
Yeah, it really is a full season of, conditioning and playing. Really
It's
is.
pretty much 11 months. It's 11 months of getting, trying to stay ready or get ready after that month off.
I hope you enjoy that month.
Right.
Let's go into the quick pitches like we mentioned. I totally missed that. Good question, Jeff. Like always, keep them coming. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Favorite athlete, other sport than baseball?
Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, 100%.
Why?
He was just like that. There's only a few guys in my lifetime that are like, something has to happen now. Something needs to be done. And he made it happen. Obviously, the flashiness of his play, he changed the style of the way that the game was played, did things that nobody else ever did. Had a player like Kobe completely, I don't want to say mock or whatever, but to pattern his style of play after
Emulate.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously won a bunch of championships. I was a basketball.
Only 6.
I was a basketball player as well. So Michael Jordan, 100%.
I love that answer. I'm a big MJ fan, so absolutely. Next one. This is a weird one. I'm trying to cup up. I'm trying to ruffle your feathers a little bit.
All right.
And, we've had a lot of these questions. I'm trying to be creative as well. If you had the last out in the World Series, hypothetically, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you won it. You got the last out to win it.
Right.
What is Bill Pulsiver doing that night after to celebrate?
Oh, I'm getting extremely drunk with my teammates. We're gonna blow it out, and we're gonna have a good time on the town. Probably gonna hit a few places where I'm sure you're not gonna pay to go.
Right. Even on the road?
Hopefully, I did get a chance to win some championships, albeit.
Well, I knew that coming in with the question, because minor leagues, Caribbean,
Yeah, there's a party with the team. We're partying.
Right.
We're having a good time, and we're going to probably have a really bad headache the following day.
Who cares?
Not probably. Definitely going to have a huge headache. And
all worth it.
All worth it. Yes, 100%. But, yeah, with the teammates. Want to be with the teammates. See the family real quick, But they got to understand that this is team time and goal accomplished.
Last question. Quick pitches. If you had another position to play as a Major League Baseball player, what would it be?
I always loved shagging fly balls. I would love to have played shortstop, but I'm left-handed. I love shagging fly.
First left-handed shortstop ever,
Honestly,
guys.
Shortstop would have been great, but because I was left-handed, I would have loved to have been able to play center field, and I used to love shagging fly balls. I was part of my running where I had to, instead of the monotonous, tedious just running, you could go chase balls. I almost had to get to. I actually ran into Jeff Jenkins one time when I was playing with the Brewers, and that didn't go over well. But
yeah, he was built like a brick house.
Yeah, well, and as a pitcher running into one of the position players, that's kind of a look down.
No.
But yeah, center field would have been awesome to go run some fly balls down. And then I loved Andy Van Slyke, watching him play when I was growing up. And then obviously you've got a guy like Ken Griffey Jr., who was a tremendous center fielder making those great catches. So I wasn't always fat and old. So center field would have been cool. First base is too. Yeah, we know you're left-handed. Go play first base. I did that young, and then as I moved and got a little older, I moved the outfield because the guy that ended up actually playing big leagues in the outfield was Brian Buchanan. They put him at first base because they said he couldn't play in the outfield, and he ended up being a major league outfielder. Lo and behold.
Yeah, I love the names. Yeah, bringing back memories here. You just turned 50. Happy birthday again.
Thank you.
You just mentioned that you weren't always fat and old. Age is just a number, buddy. 50.
Right on.
That's going to do it. Quite the episode. We had a lot to catch up on, as always.
We did.
But we caught up on it, and I had an extremely good time. Before we send off here and say goodbye, I got to thank anyone who was with us for the full hour here, our longest podcast of the year. But in retrospect, it was expected. We had to catch up from last week.
Right.
And there was a lot too. So thank you for all who are listening and still are or watching. An hour is a lot of your time. So Bill and I respect it and thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
If you are on YouTube, please subscribe. It's right there. You won't regret it because Bill and me are just getting started, baby. At Say Hello on YouTube, we're accumulating subscribers. It's going well.
I heard we're up to over 200 now, right?
I believe that we're hitting 3.
Oh, really? So after 200, the next 100 went pretty quick.
I check. Apparently, you don't. I think we're almost at 3.
It's only a few days ago I saw the 200.
Yeah,
not that long ago.
Yeah, well, I did a what they call on YouTube a short, which you saw. It was about your story about your superstition,
right?
And I gave a little tease about, because I want people to watch it. Obviously, about, we can say it now. Miguel Batista and his all that third base. Was it Miguel Batista?
Not Miguel. It was Jose.
Who was it? Was Jose Batista?
Miguel.
No,
we went.
It was Miguel.
Miguel, third baseman.
That got a lot of attention.
Good.
So, I think we're hitting. Oh, subscribers on YouTube, yeah, we're around wherever the hell we are in the 200s. But on Say Hello Pod on Twitter, we're over around 3. That's where I was thinking of.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we're all trending well. I hope people enjoy our content. Over the off season, we'll try to get some guests. There's so much good content out there, so I'd be remiss if we did it. And before we go, and the last words from Bill, Stephen White behind the scenes, thank you very much. Our producer does a great job. Roots-recordings.com. Roots-recordings.com. Just Google it, check it out. You're going to like what you see. Bill, we had a good time here. You got anything else, buddy?
Sorry for running long, but I knew we were going to after missing, and so much happened. But I appreciate everybody that stuck around to hear the whole thing. And even if you have to make it in 2 different settings to try to finish it all, make sure you finish it all. I thought it was a good time today.
Yeah. An hour-long podcast, but if you want to do a half an hour, take a little break, come back. It's well worth it. Anyone that did the whole hour, we appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, and we're all on Say Hello Podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast, we are on it. Bill, thank you so much. It was too long, even though we just missed 1 week, but it was well worth it. We caught up.
Thanks, Casey. I appreciate it.
All right. Everyone listening, I hope you have a great day, and we will see you next week on the Say Hello Podcast.